UConn wins a national title, the Badgers don't, and we'll pick an NBA champion for you right now on Sports Talk Live. Welcome to Sports Talk Live. I'm Jesse Gennigen.
I'm Luke Parece.
And I'm Adam Roberts.
And we have to start last night in college basketball. The NCAA tournament coming to a conclusion. A 60-54 win for the national title for the UConn Huskies. Their fourth national title as a program. And guys, I just want to get your overall reactions to this game.
I think Kevin Ollie, the UConn coach, is going to become the next rock star coach heading into the NBA in the next couple of seasons, maybe perhaps Brad Stevens-esque. Mm-hmm. And I also think it should be noted that since 2004, a team has not won the men's and women's national championships in the basketball Division I tournament, and it's a possibility heading in tonight with UConn facing Notre Dame.
It's true. Now here's the deal with Kentucky. Their scoring is based on fast action three-point shots. Look at these details. 37% from the field during the championship game, 31% from three. It's not going to happen. If you don't score your threes, if you're a Kentucky offense or a Calipari offense, you're not going to win the game. I give the award for best player for the tournament. I'm going to stub Shabazz Napier. Ryan Boatwright gets my vote for winner of the year. 30 minutes in every single game of the tournament. Perfect from the free throw line, Sweet 16 onwards. Very good work.
And Boatwright was really good last night for them. Boatwright had 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, all on 5 of 6 shooting. Real efficient for the Huskies. A really big contributor for them. Shabazz Napier did have 22 points last night and 6 rebounds. I mean, you can give your player of the tournament award to Boatwright, but Shabazz wasn't, he wasn't chopped liver out there. That guy played as well, and he played really well. And he was a big reason why this UConn team managed to win their fourth national title.
That's right.
But let's not forget, you bring up the Kentucky shooting percentage, and that also goes hand in hand with how good a defense the backcourt of UConn played. Boatwright and Napier pressured the ball all night. They got on the fast break. They made buckets. They made plays. Only 6 assists for the UConn Huskies last night, but they made it when it counted with that step-back fadeaway jumper from Napier and Boatwright, and they hit the big shots when it counted and mattered.
And a guy we might talk about a little later in this show, as we're going to talk a little bit of NBA draft later, Julius Randle for the Kentucky Wildcats really did not deliver on what it was a promising season for him. Randle last night, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, just 3 of 7 from the field. If Kentucky was going to win that game, they needed their star to play like a star. Julius Randle didn't do that last night. Aaron Harrison, who was a star for them throughout this tournament, did not do that for them last night. And overall, it was just a game where Kentucky really offensively, with all the talent they have, didn't bother to show up, and that was a disappointment for them. We move on to a more local story in the tournament, and that was the Wisconsin Badgers, who made a Final Four run this year. Finally, Bo Ryan gets to the Final Four. And, of course, we just mentioned him, Aaron Harrison takes all the air out of it with 1 3-pointer and takes the Badgers right out of this tournament. Guys, I've got to ask you, what did you think of the Badgers' run this year? Were you impressed? Were you a little disappointed?
Well, I gotta admit, I was very saddened when the loss actually happened. I was watching with a bunch of friends, and it was right down to the end. We were very, very disheartened, but it is heartwarming to think that this finally was the year we broke through. And with 4 returning starters next year, I guarantee we're going to be very close, if not in this exact same position. Only player not returning is Ben Brust. Kaminsky, Decker, Jackson, and Gosser will all be back next year, so there's no reason to think that we can't possibly do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And look, anytime your local university has a 30-win season and they make it to the Final Four, that's something to be celebrated.
Definitely.
A huge deficit against Oregon, they come back and win it. They beat
Baylor. It was Baylor.
Yeah, they beat Baylor. I'm sorry.
Baylor.
They beat Baylor and they beat Arizona, which Kaminsky had a 28-12 game, which, that's another thing. Trayvon Jackson, it's tough to see him take that last shot, but he has been doing it all year. But when Kaminsky gets you through the tournament, you got to give him the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Interesting point. early top 25 already came out the day after the tournament for next year.
Oh, yeah.
We are number 4.
Yep.
Number 4.
So we've got something to look forward to, and this is a new type of offense. I've never seen, in the many years that I've been watching Badger basketball, an offense as prolific and high productive as this offense with a traditional defense. We've always had those 40, 50-point defensive stands, and now we're getting down there. We've got Kaminsky who can do just about anything he wants. There is nothing that will stop us except perhaps for something like Kentucky where we just can't find a way to get
I love that. I love the tournament, and now it's over. So we put it in the rearview mirror, but we'll look back at it a little bit. And just want to get your guys' what were your most memorable sequences, I guess, of the tournament?
Well, you know, that Mercer-Duke
Yes.
win, that was a great game, and I was disappointed. I'm a big Jabari Parker fan, and it was disappointing to see all the outstanding freshmen in this year's tournament lose early. You know, Syracuse with Tyler Enos, Kansas with Amib and Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker. Arizona with Gordon is about as far as a fab freshman player got, other than, of course, Kentucky, who had 7 freshmen play in the national championship game.
You know, I gotta say, sticking with the ACC, one of the biggest stories that never was and could have been the biggest story in the history of the tournament, Coastal Carolina, the story that was and then wasn't and then almost was again and then inevitably wasn't. I mean, of all the teams that I thought would have had a run at beating a #1 seed, Coastal Carolina was not the team I had picked. I don't think anybody in the world picked Coastal Carolina over Virginia in the bracket.
No.
I had Weber State maybe giving Arizona a run. That never ended up happening. And the Coastal Carolina game, in the end, was not a close game by the standards of what a close game is. But
Coastal Carolina gave them everything they could handle
They
at
did.
that
yeah,
point.
and if you jumped into that game right at the end, you wouldn't have known that there was a point when Coastal Carolina was ahead by, I think, double digits. Were they up by double digits in that game?
They were up by quite a bit, yeah.
It was near 10 at least.
For me, just going back to something you said, that Duke-Mercer game, it always seems like it's a national holiday whenever Duke loses, and there was much celebration when Mercer pulled that upset. So that was my most memorable game. Moving on a little bit, kind of to what you said about these highly touted NBA guys, and we'll take a look at the NBA draft. Guys like Wiggins, Embiid didn't play in the tournament, but Parker, a lot of them disappointed in the tournament. What do you see these guys doing in the NBA, and where do you see them going in the draft?
Well, you know, they're saying that this might be the greatest draft since the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony class back in '03 or '04, and I don't know if it'll live up to the hype, to be honest, but there's a few guys that really could just come out right away and become NBA superstars, and Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker. There's a kid from Australia who's 18 years old.
Dante Exum?
Yes, and he's supposed to be a top 5 pick, and none of us have even seen him play in America yet. So, you know, who knows? It's going to be exciting. Milwaukee Bucks with the NBA lottery have the probable first-round pick, but you know how that always goes.
Yeah.
Nothing's guaranteed, but...
And of course, invariably, any hot-shot first-round draft pick, who is going to want to come to Milwaukee to play basketball? We don't exactly have a recent rich history, and I mean, I don't know, I certainly wouldn't want to play in an aging stadium that really can't see any chance at renovations, but I'm not a huge fan of the NBA nor the Milwaukee Bucks, so I could rant about this for a while, and I won't. I do have an interesting thing that I want to talk about, though, with the draft. John Calipari is on note as saying he wants to consider at least making some rules for how long college athletes have to play, and he's in favor, allegedly, of raising the one-and-done rule to a two-and-done rule,
Wow.
like in the NFL.
He
and
lives
I
off
think
one and done.
That's unexpected
What?
coming from him.
Yeah. To me, when you look at that issue, I think it's an issue of what is the player ready? And for me, I think it should go to a system where it's you either stay in college 2 years or you just don't go to college. I think there are players that are ready to come right out of high school. LeBron was ready. Dwight Howard was ready. There are players who can make that jump. But if you're going to go to college for a couple years and really get a taste of that. We got to take a break here on Sports Talk Live. We will take a look at some of those perfect pets, and then we will be right back.
Meet Calliope, a 2-year-old female kitty that is full of energy but knows when it's time to relax. Meet China, a 4-year-old pit bull terrier mix who loves to play and can't wait to say ni hao. And here's Rutgers. He's a gentle 6-year-old Siamese cat who's always looking for some lovin'. And meet Packer, a 6-year-old terrier who's always on the run but always makes time for his fans.
To find out more about adoption for these pets or others, contact the Cooley Region Humane Society at 781-4014.
Again, if you want to adopt one of those furry little creatures, the number is 781-4014. Guys, the NBA playoffs are right around the corner, about 7, maybe 8 games left in the season for some teams. And so we're going to take a look at who can win the title in the NBA. We're going to go right down, pick some contenders, and decide who is going to be the favorite when the playoffs start here in a couple of weeks. And we'll start with the defending 2-time champs, the Miami Heat, who obviously have the best player in the world. And do you guys think that this is Miami's year to get that three-peat, or are you picking someone else?
All right, so here's my take on this. Particularly this year, home field advantage in those conference finals is of imperative importance. It's huge.
Yes.
And now we'll sit here and we can say, oh, there's 8 teams in the playoffs for the East, but we all know
There's 2 in the
there
East.
are 2 teams in the playoffs, and we'll cover them both. But if you look at the Heat, put my glasses on right here, 3 of the remaining 6 games are against playoff teams. So it's not a hugely easy thing, but they're the Heat, so what does that matter? So I think their chances at that number 1 overall seed, when you compare their strength of remaining schedule to that of the Pacers, undoubtedly puts the Miami Heat in a position where that number 1 seed is theirs, and they can probably cruise to the finals just like they did last year, at least if that lines out for them, because home field advantage is imperative this year more than it ever has been.
You're right, and it's going to be real tough to beat the Miami Heat in Miami in a 7-game series when they have the home court advantage. And anytime you have LeBron James on your roster, you are a championship contender, especially when you have a future Hall of Famer in Dwayne Wade and a potential Hall of Famer in Chris Bosh, with the shooting help they have and the defensive pressure they can put on other teams. It's going to be tough to beat them.
And they're 31-7 at home this season so far. 7-3 in their last 10, so they've got a bit of momentum heading in. Just real important for them to get that Game 7 at home, though, I think, because whoever gets that Game 7, I think, is who's going to move on. And we will move on to the other contender that you mentioned in the Eastern Conference, the Indiana Pacers, who are 53-25 at the moment, 1 game back of Miami for that home court advantage. Guys, do you think Indiana can go, and do you think they can make that finals run?
You know, right now, it's probably in more doubt than it has been since the emergence of Paul George. They're struggling right now. They're not winning games. Frank Vogel just pulled all 5 starters in a 30-point loss to the Hawks. And, you know, it's going to be tough. They lost the first seed. They're behind Miami now. And like I said, it's going to be so difficult to beat Miami in that 7-game home court series.
So here's the deal. So chemistry has become something that, particularly in professional sports, it's gone away in a lot of ways with the emergence of the branding of superstars.
Yeah, that's a great point.
In football, I see it a lot more often, but at least with football, if the team doesn't work together, the objective can't be accomplished. But in basketball, one man can score 48 points in a game, and he'll need a little support, but everyone is going to be focusing on him. And right now, chemistry in Indiana is nowhere to be found. It's like my chemistry class in high school, they get an F in chemistry. So they need to right the ship very soon, or they're going to be finding themselves watching the NBA Finals from their respective couches.
3-7 in their last 10. Indiana has sort of the opposite of Miami going on right now. They have no momentum going into the playoffs. And it's not really anything for them to be concerned about because whoever is the 7 in the East, it might be Atlanta, it might be someone else. They're not going to challenge Indiana for that series. They're going to walk all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's just a matter of how bad Miami's going to beat them when they get there. Because if Indiana keeps playing like this, they have no shot to beat the Heat in that series. Paul George on the year, who was once an MVP contender, is down to 21.7 points per game. I mean, right now Indiana's a mess, and it's going to take a lot to fix them at a really important time. We will move out west, though, which is far more interesting because the Western Conference goes about 6-7 contenders deep. We'll just pick 2 of them to talk about, and we'll start with the LA Clippers. Lob City, as they're known, 55-23, currently sitting at 3rd in the Western Conference right now. And do you guys like LA's chances of coming out of the West?
So crazy. LA Clippers in the top portion of the playoffs in the Western Conference. 10 years ago, you say that you're either Billy Crystal or you're a crazy guy who lives in a sewer. So the thought of the LA Clippers not only trouncing the LA Lakers in that city, but taking it all the way to a potential bid for the NBA Finals is nuts alone. But the fact that it's realistic is even more crazy. And the Lob City mentality has been around in that place ever since Blake Griffin came to town. And now, with so many additions around him, he was their superstar, but now he doesn't feel like he's in that limelight spotlight anymore. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So when you look at the overall body of work with that team, it's definitely seeable that they could make a run. I do think they're going to run into some problems with the more obvious choices for the NBA Finals, the San Antonio Spurs, because of their veteranism and their overall body of work. But it's certainly an interesting thought.
I don't know if they're true title contenders. I do know that they are good for basketball. They're good for the NBA. They're good for the league's exposure. They're in a city of stars with star power. They play fast. They play strong. They have great defense. Well, sometimes. They can play great defense, but, you know, like we said, there's 7 deep in the West that could win any given 7-game series, and it's going to be an interesting ride. I'm definitely more excited to see the Western Conference playoff picture play out rather than the East. And
really interesting, I think, to see Blake Griffin make that jump this year from a really good player to an MVP, and he's going to be an important part for them going into these playoffs. Last team we have for you sitting 4th in the Western Conference is the Houston Rockets, featuring the bearded one, James Harden. Love him. And Dwight Howard as well. They're currently 4th in the West, as I mentioned. 7-3 in their last 10. Guys, Houston Rockets? Yes? No?
I'm actually hopping on the Houston Rockets bandwagon. Dwight Howard, like you said, elite center in the league. James Harden is coming into his own, averaging 25 points a game in the top 5 in scoring. And I'm going to say that the X factor of the team is the 6'10" swingman Chandler Parsons from the University of Florida. He's a great player. He's versatile. He plays both ends of the ball, and he is just he's an exciting young player.
One of the most underrated players in the league, I think.
Definitely.
All right, now let me just stop you right there and say those are all wonderful facts, but you're crazy! No. Houston has no chance at getting to the NBA Finals. You can't argue that they have those great statistics, and Parsons is a wonderful addition. But Dwight Howard is a prima donna, and when the playoffs come down to crunch time, he won't be able to take the pressure. The guy is, well, he loves the spotlight more almost than I would say Kobe Bryant enjoys it in LA. So when crunch comes to crunch, I am making that up as I go. But when it comes down to the wire, he's not going to be able to perform on the same level as anyone else.
I think this time's going to be different, though. He hooked up in Houston with Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest centers of all time. If he wanted the spotlight that badly, he would have stayed in LA with the Lakers, the most... You know, it's the most famous team in the entire league. Maybe,
he has
but
to share it in Houston, though.
James Harden is coming into his own. He's an NBA MVP candidate.
And Harden's good enough now that if Howard doesn't show up, if he does pull his disappearing act, Harden can carry them through games. I mean, he's that good right now. And he's become one of the most consistent scorers in the league. The guy gets to the free throw line 1,000,000 times a night. He's the best in the league at drawing fouls that probably aren't even really fouls. So I think James Harden has really become the X factor in Dwight Howard's career. And so we've taken a look at those 4 teams. We'll kind of bring the picture out a little bit, and we'll just say, who you got? Who's winning the NBA title?
You know what? I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to be very hard to beat. They have the best record in the league. They have the best coach in the NBA in Greg Popovich. Tim Duncan perhaps the best power forward of all time. But I will say that my dark horse is the Golden State Warriors.
Yes, Warriors
out of
fan.
Oakland, California. Steph Curry, my favorite player, Andre Iguodala. He brings intensity on the defensive end. They have shooting. They have big men that can play defense and score the ball. They have a great coach in Mark Jackson. They have unbelievable fans. And you know what? It's out on the limb, but I'm gonna take it this time.
All right, so here's the thing. Dynasties don't happen all that often anymore in sports. Parity is more common now than it ever has been before.
So you're picking Charlotte.
Oh,
Michael Jordan.
Sacramento if I really wanted to. Sacramento, Milwaukee, NBA Finals. Let's see it happen. No, I'm going to go with the Miami Heat. I want to see a three-peat. I was not old enough to remember most of the Jordan years, and the Washington Wizard years don't even count. So I want to see a dynasty in some sport, and I can't see it in the NFL because it seems like a different team's going to win the Super Bowl every year. So I got Miami going for a three-peat, and I'd love to see them win 4 or 5 in a row.
I have one more interesting thing to bring up. It'll be interesting to see how the success affects them when they're all able to opt out after this year. And the last three-peat to happen in the NBA was Shaq and Kobe with the Lakers, and we saw how that ended their relationship. So success can bring a lot of problems, and we'll see what happens to the Heat.
And it'll be interesting to see if LeBron does go back to Cleveland. That rumor's going to be there all summer.
Dan Gilbert.
And I would love to see it just because it'd be so unprecedented for LeBron to walk back into Cleveland. But as far as picking an NBA champion goes, I've really talked myself into Houston over the last segment or so. Harden and Parsons, I love that trio. So we are going to take a break here on Sports Talk Live once again, and we will take a look at a promo for WMCM. We'll see you right after that.
Hey, can't find what you're looking for?
What?
You can find what you're looking for and more at WMCM. WMCM-TV has plenty of shows you can view at your pleasure. There's Profile, where we interview people throughout the community. Or if you like sports, we have Sports Talk Live and Sports Scene. And if you're into celebrity gossip, that's why we have Afternoon Delight.
Well, that all looks great, but I'm on a computer, not a TV. I bet you guys don't have a way for me to watch this stuff on a computer.
Oh, we have that covered too. Just go to WMCMTV.com for all the updates.
Wow, that solves all my problems. Thanks, WMCM Genie.
Welcome back into Sports Talk Live, and we are going to transition now to a season that just started and looks awfully promising for the Milwaukee Brewers. Let's talk some baseball, guys. And as I mentioned, the Milwaukee Brewers are off to a hot start, 4-2, just swept the world champions in their park, in their home opening series. What a start for the Brewers. What do you guys see for their season?
Oh, I love for the fact that the first time in a while I'm excited to talk about Brewers pitching. Gallardo, Loesch, Garza, it sounds great. It rolls off the tongue well, and the ball rolls off their hands even better. I love the fact Oh, thank you so much. I love the fact that I can watch a Brewers game now and not worry about going into the 8th or the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. And yes, it's early, I understand. There's only been 6 games. We're heading out to Philly now to take on the Phillies. And I look forward to watching an offensive-powered game that can be held up with a good pitching core. I'm excited.
Yes.
And I agree with you. It's a great start, but 162 games is a very long season. I think it's interesting that the Brewers are winning despite Ryan Braun hitting 150. Maybe that has a correlation between his steroid suspension and now he's struggling, or maybe it's all a mental game. You never know. He lies through his teeth like you wouldn't believe. So we'll see, though. Like Andrew said, or Adam, I'm sorry, they're playing in Philly at 4:05 Eastern. I know, I'm sorry, my fault. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they can keep it up.
And you mentioned Braun's start. He's started coldly. What was it, $150 at the plate?
150.
But he's been carried by some offensive performances that have come really out of the blue. Chris Davis so far this year. He started 0 for 8 at the plate. Since then, he's 8 for 15. That was his numbers in the Boston series. 348 with an RBI. So hitting really coming from unexpected places for this Brewers offense.
All right, I want to bring up something now. I'm going to throw that boomerang at you. You're used to bringing the topics up. I got something for you guys to talk about.
Ooh.
So we've got a situation going on in baseball with the LA Dodgers. Yasiel Puig. He is out of control.
Dun, dun, dun.
Don Mattingly has his hands full right now, and this guy has now experienced stuff on and off the field that's inhibiting his performance. So, guys, I want to know, with all the stuff, and you know what he's been going through, but for those of you that don't, he's a speeder on the road. He does not run the base pass very well.
No,
guys, what is up with the phenom from Cuba?
I love Yasiel Puig. There's this stodgy tradition in baseball that I'm getting kind of sick of the more it goes. The St. Louis Cardinals and Atlanta Braves of the world that hold up baseball tradition like it's this infallible thing. I love guys who play like Yasiel Puig, who just give effort on every play, who maybe they'll get thrown out at third every now and then because they're giving too much effort. But he's fun to watch, darn it, and I love watching him. So I'm all for Yasiel Puig's shenanigans.
I'm also all for Yasiel Puig's shenanigans. I think he saved Don Mattingly's job last year.
He did do that.
Well,
And you know what? He's a young kid in his early 20s, has the world at his fingertips. If he wants to have a little fun, I don't see what's wrong with that. As long as, well, it is in question if he's getting in the way of the team chemistry, but, you know, he puts out, he's a phenom, he is what it is, and I like it. It's good for baseball.
Definitely. One last topic today, and it's the farewell to one of the greats in baseball, Derek Jeter, his farewell tour this year, so to speak. He'll be retiring at the end of the year. He's going to different ballparks now, getting gifts from those teams, as it's become this sort of weird tradition that I don't totally understand. But guys,
I thought you liked change.
I don't like opposing teams giving like players gifts randomly. Like, why would the Brewers give Derek Jeter a gift? What has he done for the Brewers?
Well, he sold tickets for the Brewers when the Yankees come to town. You know, I'm
How
not
often
even
does
gonna,
that
once every
happen?
4 years?
That's true, but I bet I don't know the numbers, but I guarantee when the Yankees were winning all those World Series, the ticket numbers and the attendance was higher in Miller Park than if you know it was the Houston Astros.
Did you ever really buy a ticket to see Derek Jeter, though?
No, I didn't. One
Rent a
time I did.
chance.
I went to a Chicago White Sox one year when I was young, just to see Nomar Garciaparra, though. So,
Alright.
I mean, I have done it. I bought tickets to see
Yeah.
opposing players.
I'm
I have
not a
done that.
fan of the whole giving gifts, although I will say the gift that the Houston Astros gave Derek Jeter is pretty awesome. I mean, cowboy boots, those are so cool. I want a pair of cowboy boots. If I had one, I'd wear them around campus.
Did you wear them during the game?
I would wear them during the game. I'd wear them at my acceptance speech at the Hall of Fame.
Well, that'd be a little more acceptable, I think.
I don't think anyone would really have a problem with that. I don't know. I just don't see Derek Jeter. I mean, I know he's a legend, and I know he's this
is a
guy
legend.
that was so good for so many years, but I just find it weird that teams are giving him gifts, and I don't think he's had this monumentous contribution to baseball like seems to be written right now, because I don't think he's been a guy who really draws attendance. I don't think he's even really been that much fun to watch, honestly, outside of one diving catch into the
And
stands.
I will admit, Mariano Rivera did deserve it a lot more than Jeter did.
Yes,
That was a wonderful farewell
All
tour.
right, we are going to take one more look at those furry critters, and we will be right back.
Meet Calliope, a 2-year-old female kitty that is full of energy but knows when it's time to relax. Meet China, a 4-year-old pit bull terrier mix who loves to play and can't wait to say ni hao. And here's Rutgers. He's a gentle 6-year-old Siamese cat who's always looking for some lovin'. And meet Packer, a 6-year-old terrier who's always on the run but always makes time for his fans.
To find out more about adoption for these pets or others, contact the Cooley Region Humane Society at 781-4014.
One more time, that number is 781-4014 if you're looking to adopt a pet. Guys, I know you have some things to say. I know you have some things to get off your chest. So,
Yeah.
Luke, we're going to start with you. Rant away.
You know, my rant today is going to be about the NCAA battling the Players Union of Northwestern football team. Shabazz Napier, the all-star guard for the UConn Huskies, who just won the NCAA tournament last night, has said in the media that he goes to bed over 3 nights a week starving because he does not have the money or the food to get it done. And I think that it's ridiculous that the NCAA is making billions of dollars on these athletes and they don't have enough to eat.
All right, Adam.
All right, I'm sticking with college basketball, and this one is a crazy thing. So guys, if you get a job interview, you better tell the truth, right? I certainly did when I applied at the golf course, but Steve Masiello of Manhattan College isn't going to live up to that promise. He lied to Manhattan College about attending the University of Kentucky. He still needs 10 credits to get an undergraduate degree. How has this guy been coaching for all these years? What were they thinking?
I guess we're
Don't
more
lie,
qualified than he
children.
is.
That has been Sports Talk Live for another day. We will see you next time here on WMCM.
So long, everyone.
So long.